My name is Anya Sharma, and I built a bespoke artisan jewelry brand in Austin, Texas. At 35, I believed I'd created a life worth being proud of. A growing business, a loving husband, and a family I tried to keep close, despite losing my mother young. I even let them live in the studio building she'd left me, hoping it might make us feel whole again. But I was wrong. Everything fell apart when I discovered my husband had betrayed me with my own sister, my father's daughter, from his second marriage. They had a child together, and my parents demanded that I pay to support that baby, as if their deceit was somehow my responsibility. In a packed courtroom, my sister held my husband's hand, her voice dripping with arrogance. "The court will side with us," she said. "She's just bitter and alone." My parents stood behind her, their expressions smug, as though I owed them for their lies. They thought they could corner me into submission, insisting the child was my burden because we were family. What they didn't know was that I'd already uncovered their scheme, not just to steal my company, but to take the studio building my mother had left me. Every word they spoke was calculated, every act of kindness a performance. I stood firm, my heart pounding, and smiled. "I don't need to prove my innocence," I said quietly. "I just need to show the world their guilt." What I revealed next shattered their entire plan, just as they had tried to destroy mine. Want to know how I turned the tables? Stay with me, because the truth cut deeper than their betrayal. Have you ever faced family expectations that felt like a knife in the back? Share your story below. Let's talk about standing up for yourself. I grew up in a small Austin neighborhood, raised by my dad and stepmom after losing my mother. Her name was Reena Sharma, a goldsmith whose sketches filled my earliest memories. She was gone too soon, leaving behind a void and a handful of cherished keepsakes. My father, George Olson, moved on quickly, marrying Diana Olson soon after. Their daughter, my half-sister, Sienna Olson, arrived not long after that, a wailing bundle that changed our home forever. From the start, it was clear where Diana's affection lay. She adored Sienna, while George followed her lead, leaving me feeling like a guest in my own house. As a young girl, I was often tasked with caring for Sienna, her small hands always reaching for something. "You're the big sister, Anya," Diana would say sharply, expecting me to keep her daughter under control. If Sienna spilled a drink or cried through the night, I was the one blamed. George stayed quiet, his nod silently agreeing with Diana's scolding. I swallowed my hurt, desperate for a sense of belonging. I'd already lost my mother. This fractured family was all I had left. As Sienna grew, so did my responsibilities. I fed her, soothed her tantrums, and cleaned her messes while Diana and George went out. If she refused to eat, the fault was mine. "Why can't you manage her?" Diana would snap, while Sienna, even as a toddler, seemed to know she could get away with anything. School wasn't an escape either. Sienna, charming to teachers, always left me to deal with her messes. During group projects, she'd chat while I did the work, then bask in the credit. When I spoke up, Diana called me selfish. "She's your sister," she'd say, as if that erased the unfairness. George just shrugged. "Sort it out, Anya," he'd mutter. I buried myself in schoolwork, hoping achievement would earn respect. But the sting of their favoritism never faded. The worst came later in childhood. I kept a box of my mom's treasures, a locket, a few photos, and a delicate silver filigree ring she had designed, its tiny wirework a piece of her heart. One afternoon, I found Sienna in my room. The ring bent on the floor, snapped at the seams. She'd tried it on, her careless hands ripping through the fragile silver. My heart sank as I picked it up, the filigree frayed and ruined. "It's just a ring," Sienna said carelessly. I wanted to scream, but I held back, knowing what would follow. I showed Diana the broken ring, hoping just once she'd take my side. Instead, her eyes narrowed. "Why didn't you keep it safe?" she snapped. George nodded, agreeing I should have been more careful. They sent me to my room without dinner, while Sienna got a treat to cheer her up. I sat alone, clutching the shredded silver, tears burning my cheeks. That ring was my mother's dream made tangible, and they treated it like garbage. Worse, they treated me as if I didn't matter. That night, something shifted. I saw their behavior for what it was. Not just unfair, but deliberate. Diana and George pushed me aside, elevating Sienna above me. I noticed their hushed conversations when I left the room, their watchful glances whenever my mother's studio building was mentioned. I didn't grasp its value then, but I felt their quiet scheming. I told myself I was imagining it, that family couldn't be so cold, but the doubt stayed. As time passed, I stopped seeking their approval. I got a job at a local jewelry shop, saving every dollar for a life beyond their reach. Diana complained that I was neglecting Sienna. George grew distant, his affection reserved for his younger daughter. I kept my mother's locket close, a reminder to keep moving forward. Those years taught me a hard truth. Family isn't always love. It can be a game you never agreed to play. Everything changed when warmth returned to the air and a letter arrived, sealed with my mom's name, Reena Sharma. Her will left me the studio building we'd lived in, a modest 2-story in Austin, its walls lined with her sketches of gemstone necklaces with bold, flowing lines. My hands trembled as I signed the papers, my heart swelling. This was her gift, a piece of her I could hold. But tension followed. My stepmom, Diana Olson, and my dad, George Olson, stood nearby as the lawyer left. "You'll keep the building for us, right?" Diana asked, her voice syrupy sweet. I nodded, believing family meant sharing, even if they'd given me little in return. I let them stay, George, Diana, and my sister, Sienna Olson, not out of duty, but out of a longing for connection after losing my mom. I hoped it would make us whole again, not fractured. George said little, but the quick glance he shared with Diana felt heavy. I told myself it was nothing, that I was building a home for all of us. Sienna, always indulged, treated the building like her own, leaving chaos. I quietly cleaned up. The building was more than a home. It was my mom's legacy. Her attic sketches pushed me to dream beyond the life I'd known. I was working at a local jewelry shop, learning from visiting goldsmiths. That's where I met Nina Singh, my mom's best friend, a respected Austin goldsmith with a loyal following. "You've got Reena's spark," she said, flipping through my sketches. Her words ignited something in me. I wanted to create, to carry my mom's vision forward. I enrolled in a design program at a local college, juggling classes with night shifts at the boutique. Diana disapproved, muttering about my neglecting family duties, meaning watching Sienna, who was more interested in mischief than schoolwork. George backed her, hinting I owed them for living in my building. Their words stung, but I pushed forward, saving every paycheck and sketching late into the night. I refused to let their expectations tether me. As time passed, I saw a path forming. Bespoke artisan jewelry was gaining ground, and Austin's tight-knit community was perfect for a small start. I rented a downtown studio using my savings. Nina introduced me to suppliers who valued eco-friendly metals. "Start small, dream big," she told me, showing how to source recycled silver. My first collection, simple, clean-line pendants, sold out at a local market. I named the brand Asha Jewels, a tribute to my mom's designs. The work was exhausting. I spent long days hammering and meeting clients. Diana and George offered no help, only criticism of my fancy plans. Sienna, chasing her own whims, called my work just shiny rocks. I ignored them, pouring everything into growth. Soon, Asha Jewels had a website and a small shop. I hired a few locals, including a gem setter who taught me new techniques. The studio building, still home to my family, became a place I visited less, though I kept it open for them. I told myself it was for unity, but their coldness made me question why I tried. Nina became my anchor. She'd drop by with coffee, sharing stories of my mom's fearless creativity. "Rena would be proud," she'd say warmly. Those words carried me through exhaustion. Eventually, Asha Jewels turned a steady profit with plans for a larger collection. I'd built it without my family's support, only with determination and my mom's legacy. Keeping them in her building was my last effort to hold us together, but their whispers about it and Sienna's uninvited visits to my shop felt off. I was too focused on my dreams to see the signs. Then, I met someone who seemed to change everything. Years later, I met Elias Vance at a community event. Asha Jewels was thriving in Austin, and I was speaking at a business fair about sustainable sourcing. Elias, a local financial advisor with an easy smile, approached me afterward, asking thoughtful questions about my finances. His interest felt genuine, his charm effortless. We began dating, and for the first time, I felt truly seen. He laughed at my late-night goldsmithing stories and didn't flinch when I mentioned my mom's building. After a year of evening walks through Austin's quiet streets, I married him in a simple park ceremony. My heart swelled as I said my vows, believing I'd found a partner to share both my life and legacy. As the business expanded, I needed someone to oversee the finances. Elias's skill with numbers made him the perfect choice for CFO at Asha Jewels. "You trust me with this?" he teased while signing the contract. I smiled, brushing off a faint unease. He was my husband. His strategies streamlined our budget, trimming costs on packaging and metals. The team appreciated his easygoing nature, and I felt proud, believing we were building something lasting together. But my stepmother, Diana Olson, had other plans. One night at home, she cornered me. "Hire Sienna," she insisted. "She studied design, and she's your sister." Sienna Olson had never cared about my work, often mocking it as just shiny rocks. But Diana pushed, saying the job would bring us closer. My dad, George Olson, nodded in quiet agreement. Wanting peace, I gave in. Sienna joined as marketing coordinator, handling social media. Her work was sloppy, missed deadlines, careless posts. When I pointed it out, she'd shrug. "Relax, Anya. It's not a big deal," she'd say, her tone dismissive. Elias, though, got along with her too well. I first noticed during a team meeting, their shared glances and lingering laughs. My stomach twisted, but I dismissed it as paranoia. After years of mistrust within my family, I didn't want to doubt my husband. Yet, the signs multiplied. Sienna lingered in Elias's office, their talk stretching late. Once I found them huddled over his laptop, her hand brushing his arm. "Just planning posts," Elias said quickly, his smile a little too practiced. Sienna tossed her hair and left. My chest tightened, but I clung to trust. Diana's visits to the shop became frequent, showering Sienna with praise while ignoring the rest of the team. "She's a star," she'd say, glancing toward Elias. My father sometimes tagged along, discussing numbers with him in hushed tones. I tried to focus on our spring collection. Orders were pouring in, but the tension gnawed at me. Elias stayed late, blaming budgets. Sienna posted selfies from the shop, acting as if she ran it. I caught them whispering in the break room, stopping the moment I walked in. "What's up?" I'd ask, forcing a grin. "Just work," Elias would reply, avoiding my eyes. I confided in Nina Singh, my mom's old friend. "Am I imagining things?" I asked, describing their closeness. She frowned, stirring her coffee. "Trust your instincts, Anya," she said. "Your mom always watched for what wasn't said." Her words lingered, but I pushed them aside. I didn't want to believe my husband and sister could betray me. My business, my marriage, my mom's building, they were all tied to the family I'd fought to hold together. Still, Elias's late nights and Sienna's smugness became impossible to ignore. I overheard her on the phone once, laughing about keeping things in the family. My blood ran cold, though I had no proof, just a mounting dread. One late night, Marcus flagged a strange expense in our books. He was my trusted accountant at Osha Jewels, his sharp eye catching what I'd overlooked. "Anya, this doesn't add up," he said, pointing to a string of payments labeled design fees to a company called SV Designs. My stomach twisted. Elias, my husband and CFO, handled all our finances, and I'd trusted him completely. I thanked Marcus, my voice steady, despite the unease creeping in. Something was off, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I stayed late at the shop, combing through the financial records. The payments to SV Designs were small but frequent, buried among routine expenses. They weren't connected to any supplier I recognized, and Elias had never mentioned them. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I debated confronting him. Instead, I went to Leo, our IT specialist who'd been with Osha Jewels since the beginning. "Can you check the server for anything tied to SV Designs?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. Leo nodded, curious but discreet. "Give me a day," he said, already typing. The next evening, Leo called me into his office. His face was grim as he handed me a stack of printed emails. "You need to see this," he said. My heart pounded as I scanned the first page. The emails were between Elias and my sister, Sienna Olsen, and their words were chillingly clear. They'd been planning to siphon funds from Osha Jewels to start SV Designs, a rival jewelry brand. "We'll take her market share," Elias wrote. "She's too busy to notice." Sienna's reply was smug. "She'll never suspect us." My hands trembled, the betrayal cutting deeper with every line. But it wasn't just about money. The emails revealed more. A trail of intimate messages, late-night meetings, and coded references to rendezvous at an Austin hotel. "The building will be ours soon," Sienna had written. "Diana's pushing her to crack." My blood ran cold. They weren't only stealing my company. They were after my mom's studio building, the one I'd let my dad, George Olsen, Diana Olsen, and Sienna live in. The pieces finally fit. Diana's insistence on hiring Sienna, Elias's late nights, their whispers in the break room. It had all been part of their plan. I sat frozen, the words blurring through my tears. Nina Singh's warning echoed in my mind. Trust your instincts. I'd ignored every sign, wanting to believe in Elias and family. But this wasn't carelessness. It was deliberate. SV Designs wasn't registered yet, but the emails mapped out their next moves. Funnel more funds, launch their brand, and force me out. One message from Elias was blunt. "Once we have the building, she's got nothing." Sienna's reply was a knife. "She deserves it for thinking she's better than us." I called Nina Singh, my mom's old friend, my voice shaking as I told her everything. "What do I do?" I asked, clutching the phone. Her tone was firm. "You fight, Anya. Your mom built that building and you built this company. They don't get to take either." Her words steadied me, though the pain still burned. I'd poured everything into Osha Jewels, my heart, my marriage, my hope for family. and they'd plotted behind my back. The next day, I met Leo again and asked him to trace the payments further. He found a bank account linked to SV Designs opened in Sienna's name, but funded through Elias's approvals. The amounts were small enough to slip past casual checks, but added up to thousands. I felt sick, realizing how long they'd been draining my company. Leo hesitated, then added quietly, "There's more. They've been emailing my stepmom too." I scanned the new batch. Diana had been coaching Sienna, urging her to secure the building and keep Elias in line. George wasn't mentioned, but his silence in every family argument now screamed complicity. They were all in on it, or at least willing to benefit. That evening, I drove to my mom's building, the familiar porch now tainted. Diana greeted me with her usual fake warmth. "Here to check on us?" she asked, her smile tight. I nodded, saying nothing as my eyes swept the room. Sienna lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone, smirking like she knew something I didn't. Elias was out working late again. I left without a word, my mind racing. The building, my mother's legacy, was their endgame. They thought I'd fold, hand it over the way I'd handed over my trust. Back at the shop, I locked the emails in my desk drawer, my resolve solidifying. I wasn't the naive woman who'd let them live in my building, hoping for unity. I wasn't the trusting wife who'd ignored the signs. I began documenting everything, the transfers, the messages, the accounts. Then I called my lawyer, the quiet man who'd handled my mom's will years earlier. "I need to protect what's mine," I said. He listened carefully and promised to investigate SV Designs and their involvement. As I dug deeper, the full scope of their betrayal came into focus. Elias had been funneling clients to a hidden account, preparing to launch SV Designs, using my designs as their base. Sienna's half-hearted marketing posts had been test runs for their own brand aesthetic. Diana's frequent visits hadn't been meddling. They'd been reconnaissance. Every step I'd taken to build Asha Jewels, every sacrifice I'd made, had become a target for their greed. My father's silence, once just neglect, now felt like betrayal. I sat alone in my office, the weight of it all pressing down. Nina's words came back to me. "You fight." And I would. They thought they could take everything. My mother's building, my company, my trust. But I had the truth now, and it was sharper than their lies. I wasn't ready for what came next. The next day, my social media feeds were flooded with accusations. Posts on Instagram crafted by Sienna Olsen painted me as a heartless tyrant who'd abandoned her family. Anya Sharma refused to support her own sister's child, one post read, racking up shares from strangers who knew nothing of the truth. Comments poured in, calling me selfish, greedy, a fraud who'd built Asha Jewels on lies. My blood boiled as I scrolled through the attacks, each one a calculated strike. My sister wasn't just betraying me privately. She was dragging my name through the mud in public. I called Marcus, my accountant, who'd seen the posts too. "They're claiming you owe them support for the baby," he said, his voice tight with disbelief. "It's Elias and Sienna, isn't it?" I nodded, though he couldn't see me. The emails Leo had uncovered, proof of their affair and their plan to launch SV Designs, burned in my mind. They weren't just after my company. They wanted my mom's building, and now expected me to bankroll their child. My stepmother, Diana Olsen, and my father, George Olsen, had joined the smear campaign, retweeting Sienna's lies with their own captions. "Family comes first," Diana wrote, her hypocrisy thick in every word. I drove to the shop, hands gripping the wheel. The team was buzzing, their eyes flicking toward me as I walked in. "We saw the posts," one gem-setter whispered. "We're with you, Anya." Their support steadied me, but I needed action. I called a staff meeting, keeping my tone calm yet firm. Elias and Sienna are no longer part of Asha Jules, I announced. They've been working against us. Gasps rippled through the room. Elias's charm had fooled many, and Sienna's laziness had frustrated them for months. I handed termination letters to Leo for delivery, ensuring every step was documented. This is my company, I said. No one undermines it. Elias stormed in an hour later, his face red. You can't fire me, he snapped, slamming his hand on my desk. You'll regret this. I stood, meeting his glare. I regret trusting you, I said, voice ice cold. Get out. Sienna followed, her smirk gone, replaced by a scowl. You're pathetic, she hissed, clutching her bag. You'll lose everything. I didn't flinch. Their threats felt hollow now, their betrayal exposed by the emails locked in my drawer. The team watched silently as they left, the door slamming behind them. The online attacks didn't stop. Diana posted a thread accusing me of hoarding my mom's building, claiming I'd kicked them out. It was a lie. I'd let them live there for years, hoping for family. George shared her post, adding, She's turned her back on us. Their words twisted the knife, but I wasn't the naive woman still begging for approval. I contacted my mom's friend, Nina Singh, who'd been my rock through every storm. I need a lawyer, I told her, my voice steady despite the chaos. Someone who can fight dirty. Nina didn't hesitate. Call Rebecca. She's sharp and owes me a favor. Rebecca, the attorney Nina recommended, met me at her Austin office the next morning. Her handshake was firm, her eyes assessing. I've seen the posts, she said, sliding a tablet across her desk. They're building a narrative to pressure you. I handed her the emails Leo had found, detailing Elias and Sienna's plan for SV Designs and their affair. Rebecca's brow furrowed as she read. This is fraud, she said. And the building? We'll lock down the will. She explained that my mom, Reena Sharma, had created an airtight will, naming me as sole heir. Diana and George had no claim, but their public campaign was meant to force my hand. Rebecca dove into the legal details, pulling property records for the building. They're trying to claim adverse possession, she explained evenly. Living there for years gives them a weak argument, but the will overrides it. I nodded, my resolve hardening. The building was my mother's legacy, tied to Asha Jules, and I wouldn't let them take it. Rebecca promised to file an injunction, blocking any move on the property, and to counter their lies with a defamation suit. We'll expose them, she said, pen tapping against her desk. Back at the shop, I worked with Marcus to secure our accounts. We froze Elias's access and audited every transaction. Leo ran a full sweep of our servers, ensuring no data was leaking to SV Designs. The team rallied around me, their loyalty my lifeline. Customers began posting in my defense, sharing stories about Asha Jules' artisan mission. Don't let the haters win, one wrote, warming my heart. But the fight wasn't over. Sienna's posts grew nastier, claiming I'd cheated her out of her rightful share of the business. Diana doubled down, calling me a disgrace to family. George's silence online, paired with his quiet endorsement of their lies, cut deepest of all. One evening, I drove to the building, the porch lights casting long shadows. Diana opened the door, her smile smug. Come to beg forgiveness? She asked. I shook my head. I'm here to remind you whose building this is, I said evenly. Sienna lounged inside, phone in hand, likely drafting another post. George sat in the living room, eyes averted. I didn't stay long, just long enough to make my stance clear. As I turned to leave, Diana called after me. You'll lose in court. I didn't look back. Rebecca's confidence was my armor now. The online storm raged on, but I focused on protecting what was mine. Rebecca prepared a public statement, refuting their claims without revealing the emails. Those were for court. She advised me to stay silent online, letting their lies overreach. "They're desperate," she said. "That's their weakness." I trusted her, though the weight of betrayal pressed hard. My mom's building, my company, my trust. They'd tried to steal it all. Nina Singh stopped by the shop, her presence grounding. "You're stronger than they know," she said, squeezing my hand. I clung to that, knowing the fight was far from over. At the courthouse, I faced them one last time. The courtroom was tense as I stepped forward to speak. The Austin courthouse, with its cold wooden benches, carried a weight I hadn't felt since my first legal battle years ago. My hands clutched a folder of evidence, emails Leo had uncovered, and my mom's will, proving Reena Sharma's building was mine alone. Across the room, Elias Vance, Sienna Olson, Diana Perry, and my father, George Olson, sat beside their attorney, their faces shifting between defiance and unease. I straightened, my resolve hardened by months of their deceit. Jason, the seasoned lawyer Rebecca had brought in, stood beside me. His calm presence steadied my nerves as I faced the judge. "Your Honor," I began, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "These documents reveal a calculated plan to steal my company and my mother's home." I handed over the emails, each page detailing Elias and Sienna's scheme to funnel funds into SV Designs, their shell company. Their intimate exchanges hinted at an affair, but I focused on the fraud. "They tried to take everything I built," I said, glancing at my sister. Her eyes narrowed, but she remained silent. Jason took over, his tone commanding. "Anya Maria Sharma inherited her mother's property through an airtight will," he said, presenting the document signed by Reena Sharma. "The defendants, Elias, Sienna, Diana, and George, have no legal claim." He pointed to the emails outlining how Elias, as CFO, had diverted thousands from Asha Jewels to a bank account in Sienna's name. "This is theft," Jason declared. Their social media campaign was a deliberate attempt to pressure Anya into surrendering her assets. The judge's gaze sharpened, fixed on the defendants. Elias's lawyer countered, arguing the building belonged to the family, since they'd lived there for years. "Anya owes them support," he insisted, gesturing to Sienna, who clutched a notebook as if it held her innocence. Diana nodded, her expression a mask of false hurt. George stared at the floor, his silence louder than any defense. Jason swiftly responded, presenting bank records Marcus had audited, showing the unauthorized transfers. "Adverse possession doesn't apply," he said firmly. "The will is explicit." And their actions were fraudulent. I watched Sienna shift uneasily as Jason detailed her role. "Ms. Olson used her marketing position to test Anya's designs for SV Designs," he said, displaying screenshots of her posts, eerily similar to Asha Jewels' style. The judge leaned forward, her brow furrowed. I spoke again, my voice rising. "I let them live in my mom's building, hoping for family. They repaid me with lies." Diana's lips tightened, avoiding my eyes. Elias's jaw clenched, his charm gone. Rebecca, seated behind me, whispered, "Stay strong." Her work with Jason had built an airtight case. They traced every transaction and email back to Elias and Sienna, with Diana's guidance in the background. George's complicity was less direct, but his support for their lies was undeniable. The courtroom fell silent as Jason played his final card. A recorded call, legally obtained, where Diana urged Sienna to push Anya until she breaks. The judge's face hardened, and a flicker of hope stirred inside me. The defense tried to pivot, accusing me of fabricating evidence. Jason shut them down, presenting Leo's affidavit, confirming the email's authenticity from our servers. "This isn't speculation," Jason said. "It's proof of intent to defraud." The judge called a recess, and I stepped outside with Nina Singh, my mom's friend who'd come to support me. "You're doing what Rena would have done," she said, resting her hand on my shoulder. I nodded, clutching the locket my mom had left me, its weight grounding me. When the judge returned, her ruling was swift. "The evidence is overwhelming," she said. "Anya Maria Sharma retains full ownership of the building and Asha Jewels. The defendant's claims are dismissed." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Jason's face stayed composed, but Rebecca squeezed my arm, her eyes bright. The judge continued. "The plaintiff's actions warrant further investigation for fraud and embezzlement." Elias's face paled, and Sienna's hands trembled. Diana whispered to their lawyer, her composure cracking. George looked defeated, shoulders slumped. The aftermath was devastating for them. The judge ordered a freeze on Elias and Sienna's accounts, pending a criminal investigation into SV Designs. Their attempt to launch a rival brand collapsed, as suppliers alerted by the case-cut ties. Diana and George were evicted from my mom's building, their belongings packed under court supervision. The Austin community, once swayed by their social media lies, turned against them. Local papers covered the failed scheme, and Asha Jewels gained new support as customers rallied behind my story. "Justice for Anya," one post read, shared widely on Instagram. Outside the courthouse, the autumn air felt sharp and clean. Nina joined me, a reminder of my mom's strength. "You fought for her legacy," she said. I nodded, the weight of the trial slowly lifting. Jason and Rebecca met me later, outlining the next steps. "The criminal case will take time," Jason said, "but their assets tied to the fraud are gone." I thanked them, my voice thick. The building was mine, legally and emotionally, and Asha Jewels was safe. Back at the shop, Marcus and Leo greeted me with smiles. The team had kept everything running, their loyalty unwavering. I walked through the studio, touching the metals my mom once inspired. The sting of betrayal lingered. Elias's deceit, Sienna's malice, Diana's scheming, George's silence. But I had won. Their plan to destroy me had failed. I looked at the sketches on my desk, new designs for the next collection. My mother's legacy lived in every pendant, and no one could ever take that away. With the trial behind me, I finally looked toward the future. As I stepped out of the courthouse, I felt a new beginning take shape. The weight of the trial, Elias's betrayal, Sienna's malice, and Diana and George's complicity finally lifted, leaving room for something lighter. Austin's crisp air filled my lungs as I drove to my mother's building, now truly mine. The victory in court had secured Asha Jewels, and the building Rena Sharma left me. But a harder decision awaited. Sienna's child, trapped in the aftermath of her schemes, needed a future. I couldn't turn away from an innocent life, no matter how deep her mother's damage ran. I met with Rebecca at her office to discuss the child's care. "Sienna's facing charges," she said evenly. "She's in no position to raise anyone." The criminal case against my sister and my ex-husband, Elias Vance, had stripped them of stability. Their assets tied to SV Designs were frozen, and their reputations in Austin lay in ruins. I signed the papers as Anya Maria Sharma, agreeing to take custody. "This isn't about her," I told Rebecca. "It's about doing what's right." She nodded, her eyes soft with respect. The choice wasn't easy. My heart ached as I prepared a room in the building, filling it with toys and soft blankets. Each small gesture reminded me of Sienna's cruelty, her posts branding me selfish, her emails plotting to steal my company. But the child wasn't her. I named the space Hope's Corner, a quiet vow to offer a gentler start. Nina Singh, my mother's longtime friend, helped me settle in. "You're stronger than I ever was," she said, adjusting a small crib. I smiled gratefully. "I'm just trying to honor Mom's heart." I severed all ties with my family. Elias, awaiting trial, sent a letter begging forgiveness. I burned it without reading. Sienna Olsen, Diana Olsen, and my father, George Olsen, tried calling, but I blocked every number. Their voices, once woven into my life, no longer belonged in my future. The building, once a symbol of longing, became a sanctuary for me and the child. I hired a kind local nanny to help while I worked. The pain of betrayal lingered, but I refused to let it define me. Asha Jules flourished. With Marcus handling finances and Leo fortifying our systems, we expanded the shop. New collections inspired by my mother's sketches drew customers from across Texas. The community once swayed by Sienna's lies now rallied behind me. Local boutiques stocked our designs, and online posts praised our artisan mission. "Anya's a fighter," one customer wrote, sharing a photo of her pendant. Reading their words, my heart swelled. The team had become my true family, a stark contrast to the one I lost. Inspired by the journey, I founded the Reena Sharma Fund to support women starting their own businesses. Partnering with local organizations in Austin, I offered grants and mentorship. At the first event, I stood before a small audience, my voice steady. "My mom taught me to create and to stand tall," I said. "This fund is for women who dare to dream, no matter the obstacles." Nina watched proudly from the front row, while Marcus and Leo managed every detail flawlessly. The fund's first grant went to a young designer whose sketches reminded me of my early years. Helping her felt like carrying on my mother's legacy. Over time, peace returned through routine. Mornings began with coffee and sketches at the shop. Afternoons were for the child, reading stories in Hope's Corner. Evenings, I planned the fund's next steps with Rebecca's legal insight. The building, once heavy with tension, now echoed with laughter. I hung my mother's sketches along the walls, bold strokes that reminded me of everything I'd fought to protect. The scars of betrayal, Elias's deceit, Sienna's cruelty, Diana and George's silence, slowly faded, replaced by purpose. Looking back, I've learned that independence and responsibility can heal even the deepest wounds. Betrayal taught me to trust myself and to hold fast to my values. Taking in an innocent child, despite the pain tied to her mother, showed me that kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. Building Asha Jules and the fund proved that no one can steal your dreams unless you let them. To anyone fighting their own battles, I'd say this: hold on to what's yours. Protect those who need you. And never let betrayal dim your light. My mother's legacy lives in every step I take, and I'm stronger for it.